I'm telling you, that incredible 4.5.10 assist display from Caitlin Clark the other night, we might just witness a repeat performance. Let's hope. Keeping my fingers crossed, we could see Clark dominating possession for the entire duration of the match, truly hoping for it. I definitely don't want any teammate to be hurt, but seeing Caitlin Clark back as the primary playmaker, potentially smashing her own records, just feels more exciting to watch, honestly. The tempo of the game will definitely pick up significantly. That is the core of the drama summarized. Caitlin Clark just delivered a stunning 45-10 masterclass.
The Fever
Suddenly,
finally looked dangerous again, and now the question hanging over Indianapolis is uncomfortable.
How will they fare
what happens if the offense has to run through her for an entire game?
I suspect you're wondering which player is in question. Let's dig into the details. Reports indicate the reigning Eastern Conference Player of the Week was absent from the latest Indiana Fever practice due to unspecified reasons. That player is Kelsey Mitchell. So, Mitchell skipped today's session. Wait a second, hold on. Kelsey Mitchell and the Fever have secured 4 victories in their previous 5 outings as the mid-season break looms. There it is, Kelsey.
Mitchell missed practice for personal reasons, and the reason that matters is not because anyone should be rooting for something bad. It matters because the Fever are at a strange point in their season where one absence can
inadvertently highlights the primary debate surrounding this squad. For weeks now, supporters have been locked in a familiar dispute. Is Indiana more effective when Caitlin Clark operates exclusively with the ball, directing the rhythm,
advantages, and forcing the defense to react to her every possession?
Or is
Stephanie White right to keep the offense more balanced, with Mitchell getting heavy scoring touches, Clark working off the ball more often,
and the roster shares the playmaking burden? That is the real narrative here, not just one absence. Beyond a simple personal leave, the situation suggests the Fever might be a single rotation shift away.
Their best version actually looks like. And the part that should make everybody watch the next game closely comes later. Because this is not only about Kelsey Mitchell, it is about whether Indiana has been protecting balance
or inadvertently stifling the one player who could shift their trajectory. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell is chasing MVP status, and people aren't noticing how she's achieving it. Take A'ja Wilson, for example. She exhibits an undeniable command of the game that results in such high scoring averages. But when you look at Kelsey Mitchell, she really forces her offensive output. Listen, the distinction is significant. Kelsey Mitchell is known to abandon her teammates just to hunt for her own bucket. She barely registers 1 to 3 assists per outing. Honestly, her priority is strictly putting points on the board. That is simply how Kelsey Mitchell operates. I have to be straightforward about it. That's where the debate intensifies.
Because Kelsey Mitchell is not some random role player. She is one of the most explosive scorers in the league. When she is hot,
when she's in a rhythm,
she can carry an offense for stretches by herself. She just dropped 33 against New York on
10-4-1-4 shooting, including 4 triples. That's elite efficiency. However, the criticism centers on her approach. Mitchell's style revolves around forcing the issue. She actively seeks her shot, probes defensive seams, and saves broken possessions.
And when her jumper is falling, she looks unstoppable. The downside is that she is not naturally a table setter. She is not the player who bends the floor and turns everyone else into a threat the way Caitlin does.
That's precisely why missing a practice became such a significant narrative. Whenever a scoring-oriented guard is absent, the ball redistribution shifts. If the playmaking responsibilities revert to Clark, the entire spatial layout of the
Fever offense changes. The pace goes up.
Transition
the hit-ahead
passes
come earlier.
And Boston gets
easier touches. The weak side shooters get cleaner looks. Even the crowd feels different because every possession has that sense that something can happen from 28 feet away.
Yet,
but this is also where the conversation can get unfair if people are not careful. Mitchell is not the problem by herself. The real question is how the Fever choose to use two high-usage guards who
possess such contrasting court visions. Lately, though, I've noticed she has taken it upon herself to dominate the game and potentially mount a real push for the MVP award. Now, Stephanie White is definitely aiding that. Consider this. She is implementing a scheme designed specifically for Kelsey Mitchell's tendencies, ensuring the offensive focus consistently flows through her. They keep the ball in Kelsey's hands, even though this was supposed to be the year Caitlin Clark made her big breakthrough. I'm not entirely sure what Clark is averaging currently since she's missed a few matchups, but if Caitlin keeps performing at that level, she will certainly sweep the MVP honors, eclipsing both Ajar and Kelsey. It wouldn't even be a contest. That's the crux of what fans have
for a
been
while.
Debating lately.
Is Stephanie White building the offense around Kelsey Mitchell's scoring rhythm? Or is she trying to manage a roster where Caitlin Clark has been in and out, playing through restrictions and still rebuilding her time?
Perspective? Because these two narratives are worlds apart. A cynical take is that the Fever are prioritizing Mitchell's scoring flow over Clark's absolute command. A more charitable view suggests Indiana was just trying to maintain offensive rhythm
while Clark works back from missed time
away,
while opponents
navigating
throw pressure
defensive
at her,
pressure,
while
and
the staff manages minutes, touches, and workload. Both arguments have pieces of truth, but the 45 and 10 game changed the emotional
vibe. Once Caitlin demonstrated that kind of peak performance, convincing the public to accept a diminished role for her became impossible. When a star delivers 45 points and 10 assists, seizing control of the final frame, fans
aren't going to be patient with possessions where she is standing off to the side while someone else dribbles into a contested look. That is not an insult to Mitchell.
It's simply
that
the
is
cold
just
logic
star
of
player
superstar
math.
Impact.
There are
Some
players who
provide support, while others act as the primary engine. Caitlin Clark is definitely the latter. When she's dialed in, defenses are panicked even before she crosses mid-court. So, if Mitchell happens to sit for one game,
that Connecticut matchup becomes a live experiment.
Trial.
What does the Fever offense look like when there is no debate about who should initiate? What does Boston look like with more early clock touches?
Early in the shot clock?
What does the spacing look like when every defender has to decide whether to pick Caitlin up at the logo or
crowding the lane? That's the real tactical puzzle. And 45 and 10. I mean, those are professional tier NBA-style figures. Those are elite stats. Let's keep going. It's noted the Fever heating up as the season progressed, with Caitlin Clark earning Eastern Conference Player of the Month honors for June on July 3rd, which happened to be my birthday. And then on Tuesday, Kelsey Mitchell was actually recognized as the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, given her incredible displays for Indiana over the last two outings, culminating in Caitlin Clark's 4.5.10 assist effort in that 110-107 win. Now, keeping that in mind, this is where the MVP conversation starts. It sounds
ridiculous
absurd
until you look at what people are reacting to.
The public reaction.
Nobody is saying
claiming
one huge game automatically wins an MVP. The race has context.
Aja
Wilson has been dominant.
Kelsey Mitchell
has had a legitimate scoring case.
Other stars are putting up big numbers too. But the issue with Caitlin was never her potential. It was about health, consistency, and team role. When she's fit enough to log heavy minutes and the ball is consistently in her hands, her
production can jump from good to historic
legendary
in one night.
That's why
the 45 and 10 matters beyond the box score. It reminded everybody that Caitlin's best game is not just better than normal. It is a different category of.
This creates a difficult situation for the Indiana staff. Once supporters witness that high-level performance, every subsequent tactical choice is held to that standard. Whenever Caitlin spends time on the bench, viewers
she refused to leave. Every time she is used as a decoy for too many possessions, fans remember what happened when she was allowed to dictate the game. Every time the offense bogs down, fans ask the obvious question, why is
the fan base rightfully wonders, why isn't the most lethal playmaker and shooter on the floor getting the ball? That explains why Mitchell missing a session triggers such intense scrutiny. It isn't about wanting her gone. It's
whether Indiana is going to build around the player who can raise the ceiling of the entire franchise or keep trying to satisfy a balance that sometimes makes the offense smaller than it needs to be.
Mitchell followed up with an incredible performance in the recent outing against New York. Honestly, Kelsey put up 33 points. It really feels like she's in an internal race with her own teammate. To net 33 points, while hitting 10 of 14 shots, including a scorching 4 of 6 from deep during her 30 minutes on Monday, is significant. It demonstrates that Mitchell is hardly just a passenger tagging along on
the carried by the Caitlin Clark show. She answered with 33 points,
and she did
it efficiently.
Accuracy.
10 for 14 from the field is not selfish chucking, and 4 for 6 from 3 is not empty volume. That is a guard punishing the defense.
We need to avoid reductive arguments. Simply claiming Kelsey shoots too often ignores the nuance of the situation. When she is hitting shots, the Fever desperately need that output, particularly when Clark faces traps.
Boston is drawing size, and the bench is uneven. Mitchell gives Indiana a pressure valve.
Mitchell acts as
she can create a shot late in the clock when the beautiful stuff breaks down. But the issue is hierarchy. In a great offense,
in elite
shot
schemes, there is a clear order to playmaking. The primary option should generate optimal opportunities, while the secondary option should punish defenses that over-rotate. Trouble arises when that second scoring option dictates
instead
the flow
of the
rather than
counterpunch.
serving as
That
the
is where
necessary
fans get
pivot.
frustrated.
That's why
Because
fans
Mitchell
grow
can score
restless,
33
because
and
Mitchell
still not
can
answer
drop
the larger
33
question
points while
of whether
failing to
Indiana's
address whether
best
Indiana's
possessions
best
start
attacks
with
should
Caitlin
originate
Clark.
with Caitlin
Those
Clark.
things can
Both truths can coexist. Kelsey can be stellar, while Caitlin still requires more autonomy. Kelsey can be an elite-tier scorer, yet the Fever remain at their most effective when play runs through Clark's decision-making.
It is not about choosing one player to praise and one player to blame.
It is about acknowledging
It is
that
about
shared
understanding
is
that
only
talent
part of
is
it.
not the same as
Compatibility
fit.
is key.
Two players
You might
can
have
both
two
be
elite
excellent
athletes who, to
and
be
still
effective,
require
need
a
roles
system
defined as either
that
the
makes
primary
one the
or
engine
the lethal
and
finisher.
one the
According to The Athletic, the Fever's star guard was absent from recent training sessions for unspecified personal matters. Following a standout performance, Mitchell's sudden absence, which wasn't labeled as routine rest or maintenance, raised some eyebrows. Had it been a simple case of recovery or injury management, the organization surely would have stated that explicitly. Since they didn't, it implies there could be a more significant situation unfolding behind the scenes.
That detail
lack of clarity
is what turned this from routine news into speculation. According to the report discussed in the clip, Mitchell was not at practice for personal reasons, and the team did not initially frame it as maintenance or.
However, that shouldn't grant fans permission to manufacture wild theories about what is happening. While these matters are private, the timing is naturally going to stir debate, especially given her recent hot streak.
Eastern Conference Player of the Week. The Fever had won 4 of 5. The team was heating up before the break. Then suddenly she misses practice before a game against Connecticut, and the explanation is limited. That leaves.
There are essentially two ways to look at this. The first being the most straightforward and likely. It is entirely possible this is unrelated to the court, a temporary private issue that she'll resolve quickly.
That happens.
We must remember,
athletes are human beings with families, responsibilities, and private situations that do not belong to the internet.
The second
is basketball adjacent. Even if the reason is private, the on-court impact is still real.
If Mitchell sits, Indiana's entire offensive identity must shift, and that is where the real conversation should live. Forget the rumors and conspiracies. The focus belongs on the basketball challenge of adjusting to her potential absence.
Fever do if one of their highest volume scorers is unavailable, and that is enough drama by itself, because Connecticut is not the kind of opponent where you can casually test things.
Not a
If
scenario
the
where
Fever
you want
are
to
short a
experiment
major
with the
scorer,
rotation.
Stephanie
Without her,
White either has
Stephanie
to
White
lean
must
even
decide
harder
whether to put the
into
entire
Caitlin
burden
Clark
on
as the
Caitlin
primary
Clark,
creator,
or distribute
or
the
try
load
to patch
elsewhere.
the scoring
One path
with a
could
committee.
highlight a
One
dangerous,
option could
versatile
reveal a
squad,
dangerous
while
new
the other
version
might
of Indiana.
expose their deep-seated
The other could
reliance on
reveal how
Mitchell. With Mitchell's status uncertain, the team turns their attention immediately toward the Sunday. Let me double-check the schedule they are facing Connecticut tomorrow, if I recall correctly. Yes, the game is scheduled for tomorrow against the Sun. And let me quickly look ahead at what follows. Just a second while I check the calendar. Who is on the docket after that? It looks like Seattle is next, the 28th. Are they maybe letting her rest ahead of the All-Star break? I'm not sure if the schedule is the primary factor here.
Than it
It's bigger
sounds.
than that.
The next
They have
game is Connecticut,
up next,
then Seattle
followed by
after that,
Seattle.
and the Fever are sitting in the part of the season where every decision has two meanings.
One side
One
is
meaning
the
is the
outcome,
immediate
the other
game,
is
the
their
other is the
long-term
playoff
postseason strategy. If Mitchell misses time against Connecticut or is restricted, Caitlin's role naturally expands. It's not simply about more shots. She needs total control, pushing the tempo early and running high pick-and-roll sets with Aaliyah Boston, plus open side.
Where
Looks where
Caitlin can force a switch
defensive
and make
mismatch,
the
compelling
defense
them to
choose
pick
between giving
conceding
up
a
the three or
exposing
opening the
paint.
roll.
More
More possessions
sequences
where the
where they
ball
push
is
the
advanced
pace
before the defense
opponent
is set.
can set up.
That is the
That
version of
specific
Indiana that
squad
scares
is
teams.
terrifying. Not because Caitlin must rack up 45 points every single night, but because she generates that level of intensity without needing 30 attempts. She makes defenses crumble. One lapse in rotation leads to a layup, a wide-open corner triple,
or a foul.
trip to the charity
She
stripe.
can make
She
average
injects
possessions
urgency
feel
into
urgent.
every play.
But if the
But
Fever
if the
respond by
reacts
slowing
their
down,
game,
over-managing
obsessing
the
over bench
rotation, and
or
trying to
replicate
recreate Mitchell's
production
scoring
through
players who do not
possess
have
her specific talents, the offense is going to look disjointed. You don't make up for Kelsey Mitchell by forcing everyone else into low-percentage shots. You adjust the system, giving Caitlin more responsibility, finding Boston in the post,
more
increasing
movement,
the speed,
more pace,
and wearing
more
out
stress
the defense
on the
before
defense
they can
before
get
it can
settled.
load up.
This game
That is
acts
what
as
this
a
game can
litmus
reveal.
test. It isn't
Not just whether
about the
Indiana
final
wins,
score.
but whether
It's
the
about
coaching
whether the
staff
coaching
understands
staff grasps
what
the
kind of team
identity
it
of this
has
team
when the ball is
remains
truly in.
Caitlin's hands. Honestly, I don't know. The All-Star schedule is hazy for me, but it is certainly noteworthy that she sat out. I mean, she missed practice. Now, it was reported that, with Indiana offering no immediate clarification, the fans and media are stuck waiting until Wednesday at 8 p.m., when the Fever face off against Brittany Griner and the Sun to see if the four-time All-Star will suit up. The Fever's Kelsey Mitchell was absent from training because of personal matters. I have to check the comments on this, man. We're reaching the point where the fan base is completely split.
This
One
is
group
where the
is
story
sending well
splits
wishes
in
to
two.
Mitchell, noting
On
that
one
everyone
side,
deserves
people are
privacy,
sending
which
good
is the
vibes to
decent
Mitchell,
human reaction.
saying everyone
When a
needs
player
space
steps away for
sometimes,
personal
and that is
reasons,
the correct
the
human
initial
response.
should be
If a player
grounded
is
in
away for
empathy
personal
and
reasons,
support.
the first.
Conversely, because this involves the Fever, and because the presence of Caitlin Clark shifts the entire sports landscape, observers are already dissecting what this means for the team's floor performance.
They know
People
what
are
they
focused
saw
on the
against
Seattle
Seattle.
performance.
They saw the Fever
Fever's
look
offense ignite
explosive
once
when Caitlin took
assumed
over.
command,
They saw a
displaying
team that can score
squad
fast,
capable
hit
of rapid
threes,
scoring,
and flip a
perimeter
game's
shooting,
energy in
and
minutes.
shifting the game's
So
momentum
now,
instantly.
even a practice
Consequently,
absence becomes
even a
part of the.
training session fuels broader speculation regarding team hierarchy, structure, and future tactical direction. That's the tricky reality of playing alongside a major star. Every mundane roster update is treated as a deep critique of the system. Every health report
becomes
prompts
a
debates
debate about
player
usage.
While
Every
simple
substitution
rotations are
becomes a
interpreted as
message.
symbolic acts,
Every quote
coaching
from the
sound
coach
bites are
gets dissected
scrutinized
like it
corporate
came from a
strategy
front
papers.
office
This
memo.
environment isn't
And that is
going
not
away.
going away.
Indiana invited
Indiana
this intense
asked for
scrutiny
this level
the
of.
moment Caitlin joined. As fame is part of the business model, more eyes on the screen, higher ticket demand, expanded national discourse, and constant pressure. You can't capture the benefits without the intense spotlight, so the Fever must manage
Careful with how they handle
this. If Mitchell remains active,
if Mitchell is fine and plays, then the challenge is blending her scoring with Caitlin's control. If Mitchell misses time, then the challenge is not wasting the opportunity to learn something. Either way, Indiana cannot pretend the question is not there. The question is simple.
When the game
when
is
this
on the line
team needs
and
its
precision is paramount, who truly dictates the flow? Sending good energy her way for a quick recovery, knowing everyone requires personal space. Ultimately, prioritizing Mitchell's physical and emotional health is what truly matters. After all, when the previous season wrapped up, she was certainly capable of walking off the floor herself. And, well, that purported letter from Kelsey Mitchell to Caitlin Clark, that sounds highly questionable. I really doubt that's authentic. Observe how frequently WNBA stars request personal leave compared to the NBA.
These comments show how quickly the internet can turn a small piece of information into 100 different narratives. Some people immediately go sympathetic, some go sarcastic, some start comparing leagues, some start
different sports leagues. Turning a vague absence into something scandalous is a dangerous habit. A player skipping practice for private reasons should never serve as an invitation to mock, analyze, or spread unsubstantiated theory.
Still, but it also shows how much tension already existed under the surface. The reaction was not created from nothing. It came from a fan base already frustrated with the way Indiana's offense has looked at times.
While a rational audience remains patient for news, an irritated one views every update as proof of failure. Fever supporters have been vocal about specific coaching flaws. They have observed Caitlin lingering on the bench.
During stretches where momentum disappears, they have watched possessions where she does not touch the ball early enough. They have watched Boston and Clark show chemistry, then watched the offense drift away from it.
They have seen Mitchell capitalize on high-difficulty attempts, while occasionally overlooking the simple, immediate openings that Caitlin generates just by setting things in motion. When Mitchell misses sessions, experts
immediately to the
wonder,
same place.
Will Caitlin finally
get the ball
for
a full game? That is why the next 48 hours matter.
Crucial.
Not because the Fever should rush Mitchell, not because anyone should turn her personal situation into content, but because if Indiana plays without her, the tape will be loud. It will show whether this offense becomes cleaner with one clear engine, or whether Mitchell's scoring gravity has been covering up problems people do not want
that the team refuses to acknowledge. To be clear, I am not wishing for anyone's injury, but watching Clark take over again and potentially smash more records is more appealing than witnessing the current setup. Honestly, the tempo will just be faster. The pace will really pick up.
That line about the game flowing quicker is the basketball key.
Debate.
Pace is not just running faster. Pace is decision speed. It is how quickly the ball gets from rebound to attack. It is how quickly a defense has to identify the ball, find
shooters, defend the paint, and adjust their defensive assignments. Caitlin Clark boosts decision-making speed because she reads the court early. She doesn't need plays to fully manifest to identify where the leverage lies. That is
why her hit-ahead passes matter. That is why her deep shooting matters. That is why defenders picking her up so high open space behind them. She turns the whole possession into a countdown for the defense. Mitchell creates
a different form of pressure. She strains her direct defender, whereas Caitlin stresses all five players simultaneously. That's the real gap. If Indiana truly wants to be more than a flashy early season headline,
this is the distinction they have to build around. Playoff basketball punishes confusion. Teams scout tendencies. They take away first actions. They force role players to make decisions. If the Fever enter
the postseason lacking a defined offensive personality, they are playing into their opponent's hands. Their structure should be straightforward. Caitlin Clark serves as the pilot. Aaliyah Boston provides the post presence, screening,
Kelsey Mitchell is the elite scoring weapon who punishes tilted defenses.
Coverage.
The wings have to defend, space,
the floor,
cut, and make
hard,
the next
and
pass.
keep the ball
That
moving.
is the blueprint.
That is
but the
strategy.
blueprint only
Yet,
works
it only
if the
succeeds if
hierarchy
roles are
is
clear.
honest.
You
You
cannot possess the league's top playmaker and treat her like a rotating guard. You cannot simply dismiss Mitchell's offensive output while ignoring the necessity of efficiency. It's not about being against Kelsey. It's about
structure.
prioritizing
When
team
Mitchell
structure.
plays, her
Ideally,
best role
Mitchell
should come after
thrives once
Caitlin has bent the
compromised
defense. When Mitchell
In her
sits,
absence,
Indiana should not
shouldn't
panic
by
and
hunting
search for another
isolation
isolation
specialist.
scorer.
Instead,
They should
they
lean
must
into the
commit to a
system that makes
the
everyone
squad
easier to guard
defend
if they
if they
avoid
ignore
it,
it,
and
but
harder
tougher
to
to handle
guard if
if
they
they commit
embrace
to
it.
it.
That is the
real
hidden
gravity
stakes of this
situation.
story.
A brief personal hiatus might expose a raw reality about their basketball identity. Hopefully, it's nothing serious and she is doing fine. I'm not sure what to think. This is honestly quite bizarre. Very, very peculiar. I had to state that. Down in the comments, share your perspective. That is where the Fever currently stand. Kelsey Mitchell being sidelined for practice
may
could
turn out
just
to be
a
nothing
minor
more than a
personal
short
matter.
personal
If that
absence.
is indeed the
And if
case,
that is the case, the only correct response
reaction
is
is
to hope
wishing her
everything
well
is
and
fine
moving
and
forward.
move on.
Yet,
But the
tactical
basketball
dilemma
question does
remains
not disappear
regardless of
just
whether
because
her
the
time off is kept private. Indiana faces a clear crossroads. They can continue managing their play as a delicate balancing act where everyone receives touches and the hierarchy is kept flat to avoid bruising egos. Or
they can
acknowledge
accept what the last
recent
few
reality.
games have made obvious.
When Caitlin Clark
When
is healthy,
Caitlin Clark is
brimming
healthy,
with
confident, and trusted
commanding
with the
the
ball,
rock,
the Fever
this
become
group
a different
operates on a
team.
different level.
That does
That
not
doesn't
mean
imply
Caitlin has to
Caitlin must
shoot
launch
every possession.
shot.
It
It
does
doesn't
not mean
Mitchell fades away, nor does it render Boston irrelevant. In fact, it is quite the opposite. A truly Caitlin-led offense creates cleaner looks for Mitchell, simpler roles for Boston, clearer reads for the wings, and
full
a much
team
faster
faster.
pace for everyone.
The danger
The
for
risk for the
Indiana
Fever
is trying to
obsessively
protect
protecting
everybody's
roles
roles so
to the
carefully
extent
that they never
fail to
maximize the one role that changes the
defines their
franchise.
franchise's trajectory.
And that is why this
is
next
why their
game
next
has more
matchup
meaning
carries
than
more
the
weight
standings.
what the standings imply. If Mitchell plays, observe whether they empower Caitlin to command the floor or revert to your turn, my turn basketball. If she is out, note if the offense flows better or stalls while hunting for shot creation.
Either way, the
results
answer will
be
tell
telling.
us something.
Pick a
So
side.
pick a side.
Should the Fever,
fully
commit to
hand
putting
Caitlin Clark
ball
the
in
keys
Caitlin
right now,
Clark's hands
even if it
exclusively?
means Kelsey
Even if it
Mitchell's role
requires
has
Kelsey
to shift?
Mitchell to adapt her
Or is
role,
Indiana
or does
better
Indiana
with-
perform better with Mitchell as a co-star, sharing playmaking duties? Share your take below. Like the video for more Fever analysis and subscribe for our upcoming coverage because this roster is one pivot away from either reaching its full potential or demonstrating that it still lacks self-awareness.